So using the link in the description below, you can download this illustration file from freepik.com, and make sure that if you upload this animation, do not forget to mention the name Freepik in your content. So you can download this, and once it's done, you can open it. And when you open it, you will see that we see a few groups. One of them is the logo, of course, and then the other one is the text. So if we open these groups, we see a few more nested groups and layers. So inside this objects group, we have the ball and the background, the shield background, and in the shield background we see all these layers that make up the shield content, and in the ball we see the ball background, and then we see all the details like the seams and the shine, reflection, and the shadow on the bottom side of the ball to give it a realistic curve ball look. Okay, so what we need to do is that we need to simplify these layers, the composition, and once we have simplified it, we can easily import this file into After Effects, and then we can animate it easily without all the confusion of nested layers. So the first thing I'll do is that I will create a new layer, which will be a group layer in the end, and let's call it the ball. All right, now if you go inside the ball group, we have a few layers. The first layer is the ball background, so we drag it to the ball, and now this is a group. Okay, and then we have let's turn it off for a while. So first of all, we have the seam, and then another layer for the seam. These two layers make up the seam, and this third one also. Okay, and then we have these dots that give it some details to it. All right, these balls, these dots which you will see on them. Okay, so these are the details. We need to create another layer, and we call it details, and in the details group we drag all these layers to the details group. All right, these are all the details. Sorry, we need to drag only these dots, and then for the lines we must have another group. Let's call it lines, and we drag these layers into the line. All right, these are the lines, and we have details, and then we have another group we call shine and shadows, and in this one we must have these details, the shine and the shadow. So we select these two layers and take them to the shine and shadow. So this is the shine and shadow, the dots and details, and then we have the lines. Alright, and we need to select all these three the dots, the details, and the shine. And the lines, and the background. The background is already inside the ball group, so just drag these three into the ball. Alright, now we have the ball background, the skin of the ball. Let's just call it skin. And then we have the lines, and then the details, and then we have the shine and shadow. So let's close this group and move on to the other group, which is the text. Alright, in the text group we have two layers. One of them is the this basket text. This should move to the object group, alright, because we need it to move with this one. And then we have another text, which is the basket lead, so we drag it. Now another thing is that some the layers that are not groups, you see that if you see this arrow, it means this is a group, and if you don't see an arrow, it means it's just a layer. Now these layers are always locked inside the group. They cannot exist without a group, so you cannot have it outside a group, so it must stay inside this group. So we have to just call this group basketball text, and we can delete this other layer, and now we will treat this group as a layer. Alright, I think we are ready to go, right? Perfect. Alright, and because we need all these individual layers, that's why we need to make sure that all these layers are groups themselves. And for example, this layer is not a group. What it will do is that when we import this file into After Effects, it will merge this group into one layer, so we won't have these individual layers. So we need to select this layer, or we can just select this group, go to options and click release to layers. This will make extra groups inside this layer, so we will see them as individual layers in other programs like After Effects and Photoshop. And another thing that we have to do to make sure that we have individual layers, we have to select these layers and we take them outside the group, and then we can delete this main group. So now we will have these individual layers. Once you have these layers ready, you can select all these layers, go to edit and copy. After copying it, you can go to Photoshop project, create a new project, and after creating a new project, you can go into your project and go to edit and paste all those layers as layers and hit OK. And you need to select vector mask and you continue. And you of course need to adjust the size of all the layers except the background. So we select all these groups and we size it down to something like this. Yes. Sorry. Now once you have it resized, you can save your file as logo. Now we need to organize these layers again. So first of all, if we move this one outside this group and this one as well, we can rename it to shadow, because this is the shadow layer and this is the shine layer, the reflection. And we can convert them to smart objects. Sorry, not like this. We can convert this to a smart object, and this one as well, or we can just leave them as they are. We can delete the group, and inside this group we have this layer. We name it the dots, and we delete the group. And in this group we have the lines. This group is not that important. We will just convert this into a smart object. And then we have this group, which is the skin or the surface of the ball, the background, right? And we can delete this group. And then we have the text, right? This text, we can take it out, delete the group. And in the objects, we don't need to ruin this one, so let's just convert this one into a smart object. So this is just one layer now. And for the background as well, we have a few layers. We can just simply convert this into a group, into a smart object, so that it's not a group and just a simple layer that we can easily manage and edit. Alright, now after saving the file, so here we are inside the After Effects. We can create a new composition, and let's call it the seam animation. The seam animation is basically seam means the black lines you see on a basketball, the curved lines. There are about 8 lines on a basketball, black lines. We call them seam. So first of all, we need to create a seam animation. So let's create a new composition and call it seam animation. Hit OK. See, the dimensions should be 2000 by 1000. So the aspect ratio is the important thing to note here. You can have a different resolution, but the aspect ratio should be the same, and 60 fps. Hit OK. Now we need to draw a line first of all. So we add a point, hold shift, and at another point hold shift, because we need a straight line. Now we can go to a line and take it to the center. All right, horizontally centered, vertically centered, whatever you call it. And we set the fill to null, and we set the stroke size to, let's say, 30 or 25 for now. We're going to have a different stroke size later. So we can duplicate this layer, and we go to position by hitting P on the keyboard, and we drag it a little bit upward, here maybe, and then we duplicate it again by Ctrl plus D, press P to see the position control, and drag it down. Right, make sure that the gap between these two and these two is equal. Now the next thing we have to do is to go to effects and search for wave wall, and drag it to one of the layers. Now we need to make sure that the height is, well, something like this. and we have a wave width almost half the width of the composition. The width of the composition was 2000, and so the width of the wave should be 1000. All right, and the phase should be, I think, this one. Yes. Now we might need to set the height to something like this. It might be too much. Let's try different values. So we can go to position again and drag it down a little. Well, the height should be 60, and the speed, which is the speed at which the wave is animated or evolving, the speed should be 0 because we do not want it to change. And then we can copy this effect, go to the second layer and paste it here. But for this one we need the phase to be 270 because this wave should be the opposite, and we place it at the same distance like this. Okay, perfect. Now we have to select these layers. Well, first of all, we need another layer. We select the first one, we press Ctrl plus D, go to position and place it at the upper corner. Duplicate again, go to position and place it at the bottom corner. And then we duplicate it again, go to rotation 90 degrees, go to position again to the left corner, duplicate again, position and go to the left corner. This should be perfect. Now we can select them all and recompose. Let's call it seam shape. Now after pre-composing this file, you can move this in any direction. Now the first thing you need to do is to go to the scale, and if you scale it down, it scales down proportionally, but we don't want this. We need to scale it unproportionally. So and we need to make it 50% so that it's in this it's half its length. So now we go to position, we go take it to the side, or we can just make it 500. All right, and then we can duplicate, go to position, and we can make it just 1500, and then we can select them both, recompose, and we call it shape again, and we duplicate it again, go to position, and we place this one right next to the first one, which is the position 3000. And if we move the first layer, it moves alone, the other one stays at its position as it is. And if we connect it to the first one, then moving the first one will move the second one as well. So we add a keyframe for this current position, go to 5 seconds and add another position, let's call it -1000. So it looks like this, right? So we get it. And the animation stops here, which we don't want. We want it to go on for infinite time. So we hold Alt key and click on the clock icon, and we type here loop out, this option. Now what it does is that it loops these 2 keyframes for infinite time. So this is how it's going to look. Perfect. Now we can select these both layers, pre-compose, and let's call it the skin. Once we have the skin, we can go to effects and search for CC sphere, and we apply this effect to the skin. What it does is that it gives this it applies this layer as a surface or skin to a ball, a sphere, and the radius should be 500, and we want the render to be outside so that we only see one side, not the both sides. Right, this is how it looks perfect, I guess. Looks perfect to me. All right, if you go to lighting, we want this intensity to be, well, let's make it 100, and the height should be 100 as well. So this is how it looks. Import this file. Logo. Select composition, retain layer sizes, and editable layer styles, and we hit OK. Now if we open this composition, we can see that it is as we expected. Now this was these were called the lines. We're not going to use them, but just for the understanding, we need them to be here. For the skin, now right above the skin we have the line. We can hide these lines and we can add our own line animation that we created in the After Effects previously. So we can drag this seam animation and we place it above the skin. So this is our seam animation, right, that you can see. But the size and position of this seam animation should be the same as the size and position of this one. So if we note down the position of this one, we can copy the exact same position, 1356.5. Alright, position seems to be perfect, and the size should be this, or maybe 65. Yes, perfect. Now this is how it looks. Of course, the color of the seam animation lines should also be appropriate. So we can select all these layers. We can go to the size and we can set it to 10 or maybe 15, and for the color we can make it black. This is how it will be going to look like. Now there is a problem. The problem is that some side look thicker. In the center the lines look thicker, but on the sides they look very narrow. Of course it's realistic, but for our logo we want a minimalistic look and we want the lines to have a consistent width. So for that we need to go to the seam lines. We set the stroke size to 0.01, so it's almost 0, or we can make it just 1, right? And we need to make sure that it's visible on the corner as well. All right, and we need to make sure that it's right in the corner. But it should still be visible, right? Perfect. Same for this one. Which one is this? Now we can go to our main composition, and we have some very thin lines, but because the lines are very thin, almost 0, that's why we get a consistent line. I mean, nothing is very different from one. So what we need to do is that we need to right click, go to layer styles and select the stroke, and now we can add our own size for the stroke, but this time the size will be consistent because the size is being applied, the stroke is being applied after the 3D animation, the sphere animation has been applied. So this is how it looks finally, and of course the sharp, the completely black color, solid black, is not looking very good. We need to fade it a little to make it a little bit green, so we just reduce the opacity to 70% or 50%. all right, now for the first one we can have the opacity to 3.5. or just 3, and we can have a duplicate with a stroke size equals to 2. Right? And for this one we can have, for the first one we can have opacity to 30%, and for the second one we can have the opacity to 70%, and the difference should be slightly more in terms of stroke size. Or we can make it 4. Yes. And for this one, the stroke size would be 1.5. Now we see a faded stroke. It looks a little more immersive and looks much better. So this is how the current rotation looks like. Now what we need to do is to add another rotation. We can rotate it like this, but make sure that the second copy is attached to the first one, so that if we rotate the first one, the other one also aligns with it. So we add a keyframe here, we add another one for 2 rotations, and this is how the final animation should look. And now we turn on the dots layer on it, we get a beautiful texture. Of course, the credit goes to the original designer. Now we see one problem, which is that the dots are going outside the ball, and the seam animation is also going kind of outside the ball because the scaling is not perfect. So what we can do is that we can select all the layers that are related to the ball, all these layers, and we can pre-compose and call it ball. And we once we have this, we can, of course, we have to turn off the original lines, and of course you can change the colors to make it perfect. And once we have all the ball layers pre-composed into one layer, we can create a mask. We hit Ctrl+R on the keyboard to open the scale, and we create a scale point to the corners of the ball. And then we can draw circle, right? And we hold shift to create a mask. Okay, perfect. With the help of this mask, we have cut out everything that goes outside this circle, and now it looks almost perfect. And now we can of course remove these scale points, and we can preview our final animation. And now we can add all the other simple animations that are a part of these final logo animation. So the first one was the appearance of this one, right? So we need to rotate this first of all, and if we go to rotation, we can only rotate it clockwise or anti-clockwise. But if we make it a 3D layer, we can rotate it in on any axis. So I'll rotate it on y-axis. So I'll add a keyframe and then another keyframe for 180 degree. So this is how it should be. And let's turn off the ball for now. This is how it looks. And we can go to scale and make it 0 to 100. This is for 0 and this is for 100. Alright, and now for the text. This text should be placed below the object, below the shield, so that we can animate like this. We go to position and then we add this position, so it goes like this. This is how it looks, but this text should not appear before 1 second, so we can cut it in the first second. Perfect. And we can of course unselect all the layers and press U on the keyboard to reveal all the keyframes. We can select them and we can easy ease them, and looks much better and smooth. And of course we need to add the animation for the ball. We take the anchor point to the center so that when we scale it, it must scale around the center. So we add the final position, final keyboard here, keyframe here, and then the first screen keyframe for 0 position. And this is how it must look. Perfect. Easy ease.